miles per hour may not sound like a lot, but when you have hours of it, it's difficult to deal with. And it's a big system, big wind field. Tropical storm force winds extend out 345 miles, which means, yeah, we can feel the peripheral effects even with the center far off. Starting to see some high clouds, but as far as what it feels like out there, still pleasant. We head to Cranberry, Connecticut. Actually going to get showers from a front, not Lee, by the time we start next week. So I'll track that as well coming up in the 10-day. Clouds from Lee already, and that's this sort of the milky white here on our picture. 60 degrees at Central Park, though. So if we didn't have Lee to talk about, we would talk about how cool and refreshing and fall-like it is out there. And it is 48 in Sussex, 42 in Monticello, 58 in Bridgeport. But obviously we're seeing the clouds, a lot of impacts here. The latest on Lee, it is a Category 1 storm, max winds of 85 miles per hour. But at this point, we don't want to focus only on the category and the high end of the center of the winds, because the wind field is huge. Tropical storm force winds extend more than 340 miles out from the center, which is why the center can be so far away, which it is tracked to do, and we still feel those effects. So you can see the likelihood of tropical storm force winds. One reason why we may not be under any tropical storm watches or warnings, but those gusts could reach those levels at times. So again, with the persistence of it, the hours of it, we absolutely have those coastal impacts and concerns. So of course, first and foremost, the big waves, already seeing it. 10 to 16 foot breaking waves as we get into Friday night, early Saturday. So that's kind of the peak timing. We have the high surf advisories. We also have coastal flood advisories posted. Erosion, overwash, all those things in those low-lying areas really going to be a problem. Peaking again Friday into Saturday, but some areas could see it extend into early on Sunday. So the cloud picture is one thing, right? We may get that filtered sunshine, not the bright blue skies like yesterday. I think the rain, if anything, you may get some sprinkles from Eastport to Montauk. That's about it. Believe it or not, we're tracking a front here Sunday night into Monday. That will bring us some showers back to the area briefly before we set up for another nice week ahead next week. So it's cool today and mainly clear. We'll start to see more clouds, especially north and west. You'll hang on to some of that sunshine a little bit longer. About 73 degrees at 2 o'clock, 66 through 8 p.m., down to 61 tonight. Obviously breezy. It starts to get a little gustier towards tomorrow.
The umbrellas and beach furniture out in the Rockaways and other places. You have it out from the summer. You're going to take it in later. May have to take it in sooner.
Yeah, absolutely, because the winds aren't easing. We're going to see them continue to escalate. And Gabi brought up a good point. This is not just a couple of hours. I start the clock this morning at 9 a.m. We're going straight through tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Persistent and consistent gusts in that 20 to 30 mile per hour range. So the North Shore as well needs to look out. I'll talk about all the impacts and the clearing for the end of the weekend in the 10-day.
Maria,
Michael, thankfully, we don't have a ton more rain in the forecast. You can't even see any footprint from any Lee rainfall because we're really not expecting much. But you can see over the next 7 days, most of what we're finding here will come late Sunday into early on Monday. But we are focused on Lee, and there are other water concerns, including coastal flooding. You know, we're focusing a lot on the South Shore of Long Island, the Jersey Shore, for good reason, big waves. But I want to pay attention to coastal Connecticut, Fairfield County, Westchester County too, and the North Shore of Long Island. Here, coastal flooding a concern too. So this is not just South Shore and the big waves, but the rise of water during high tide. So a lot of these coastal advisories go through at least Saturday into early on Sunday. So there could be a couple of high tide cycles here that we see some high water in those susceptible areas. So just a heads up. As far as rainfall goes, right now the radar is quiet. The satellite picking up on those high clouds already from Lee, from Islip and Montauk. It is cool and breezy. 60 right now at Central Park, down to 48 currently at Sussex. So the cloud picture, yes, we won't see a ton of the bright blue skies, at least mainly city eastward today because of those high clouds, but we will be dry. You can see the closest approach to the rainfall really looks to be early on Saturday, so if there's a chance to see any of it, that's the time frame. Note our temperatures staying in the 50s and 60s. Lee pulls away, the clouds pull away, and should be a nice wrap up on Saturday as far as the weather goes and how it feels out there. So 73 for the high today. North winds are pretty brisk, 10 to 15 miles per hour. We'll see gustier conditions overnight tonight with a closer approach of Lee. 61 degrees for the low, and then tomorrow 75 degrees, increasing sunshine, but we see the peak of all of the impacts, the wind, the coastal concerns, before we see that ease on Sunday. So Lee is out of here. The next one to watch will be that front late Sunday and into Monday. That brings us some showers.
get out in the water now and enjoy the waves, but it could be a little rougher than
Oh, for sure. And it can be beautiful, that rough surf. But yeah, we have this big storm here. The tropical storm force winds extend out 345 miles from the center, which is why we could feel it with the center way offshore. So along with the big surf, coastal flood is a concern, and not just for the South Shore, North Shore, and also Connecticut and Westchester County in and around the city. So I'll break down all the impacts, time it out for you in that 10-day forecast. Summer calendar before we welcome fall. But we're getting a little bit of that taste this morning. Yeah, we've got some 40s out there. Sussex and Monticello have dipped into the 40s, Poughkeepsie at 52. Still sitting at 60 degrees in the city. But one thing you also notice, the streaming high clouds. This is actually from Lee. So we just got the new advisory in. Not much has changed. Still a Category 1 hurricane, 85-mile-per-hour maximum winds. Picking up a little forward speed there, moving to the north at about 16 miles per hour. So we have the latest track still well off our coast, the center of it. But this is a massive wind field where hurricane force winds extend out over 100 miles from the center, but tropical storm force winds extend more than 340 miles out from the center. So that's kind of what we're looking at here, the likelihood of seeing those tropical storm force winds. And you can see it's coastal New England, but also just clipping eastern Long Island, Block Island, and those areas where we are likely to see several hours of gusts at that level. And so with that, we still are expecting those peripheral effects, and for several hours at that. So it's wave action. We're also looking at the dangerous surf, as we've been talking about, 10 to 16-foot breaking waves, which could produce overwash, dune erosion as well. We do see that with those low-lying roadways and those susceptible properties, this is a time you really want to take precautions because, again, it's way offshore, but we're still going to feel it for several hours. Here's the good news. It is done by really Saturday afternoon. We even see the clouds pull away, and Sunday starts off really nicely, but another front's coming on by. That brings us a chance for some showers here into early on Monday, and then we really set up for a nice week ahead. Off to a good start on this Friday with mainly clear skies. Again, cool, breezy. Those winds will continue to stay high and brisk through the afternoon and evening hours. 73 degrees for the high. We'll get down to about a 61-degree low tonight. So again, on the cool side. And
This show, one of the longest running in television history.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yes, she is.
She really is. All right, to talk about fantastic, we've got a beautiful view from Brooklyn Heights of Lower Manhattan at fair skies right now. A little on the chilly side, so Stella here, take a note from Stella. Little sweater won't hurt you this morning. Temperature-wise, only into the mid-60s by this afternoon. We've got our eye on Lee, of course, but it does look dry, certainly breezy through the weekend. I am tracking showers, though, to start the week, so I'll break that down for you coming up in the 10-day.
All right.
You don't need a direct impact to have high-level impacts from tropical systems, and this is a perfect example where it's going to be several hours of some rough surf, and that is definitely enough for beach erosion and all those side effects, too, from an offshore system. So it is going to be an interesting few days. In fact, we have a fall feel now, and it's going to keep us sort of on the cool side with some warm afternoons the next few days. For the most part, even with Lee off the coast, we're going to stay dry, but I'm tracking some showers that'll catch up with us with a front, not from Lee, by Monday morning. So let's start with Lee. It's an impressive storm, still a Category 1 storm. We're getting the high clouds right now. The track at the center of it continues to keep it well off the coast, but as we've been talking about, some of those peripheral effects. One being, of course, the clouds. Not a big deal, but we may not get all of the bright blue skies that we enjoyed yesterday, so mostly cloudy heading into tonight and tomorrow morning. You can see by tomorrow morning sort of the peak of some of these impacts, the higher gusts, and if there's any shower chances here, that's going to be by tomorrow morning for Montauk into Connecticut, certainly coastal New England. But you see, as the storm moves away, everything gets pulled away, the higher gusts and, of course, those clouds. But we do stay gusty, especially for Long Island, Connecticut, for a good 24-plus hours where those gusts are consistently 20 to 30 in cases like Montauk here, maybe 40-plus miles per hour. And when you have it that persistent and that consistent, that's all you need for some big problems, including big waves, which we're talking about, a rough surf, of course, beach erosion from those breaking waves, and overwash. So all of those areas, especially the low-lying spots where you know you're susceptible in times like this, and those coastal flood concerns even for the North Shore of Long Island. We spend a lot of time talking about South Shore, Jersey Shore, but keep in mind there could be high tides here really tomorrow and into early on on Sunday, so something to keep in mind. Again, otherwise, it's really nice out. We're enjoying this nice dry break, 60 degrees in the city, that dew point down into the 40s, so really, really dry. 73 degrees for the high today, those north winds staying brisk, 61 degrees overnight tonight with partly cloudy skies, so grab that sweater. And staying dry but breezy tomorrow, 75 degrees, northwest winds about 10 to 20. Everything begins to ease this weekend, just keeping in mind, especially coastal New England, those showers from Lee will be an issue.
Beautiful view there of the harbor.
Yeah, it looks great. This is a view from Earth Camp, but you know it's windy when you see the ripples on the harbor and probably getting some whitecaps on the Hudson River. So water and high water a concern along with the gusty winds, and you can see in and around the city, but also coastal flood advisories posted from the North Shore and South Shore of Long Island, coastal Connecticut. So I'll break down what we're thinking as we head into the weekend of those coastal impacts and a look ahead to next week in the 10-day.
Maria, thank you so much.
Mary's picking up half a foot of rain over a week's time. We have some to go over the next week, but most of this coming actually late Sunday into early on Monday, not from Lee. We're not going to get very much rain at all from Lee, just of course those impacts along the coasts and waterways. So we've got a lot to cover. It's a massive storm, really spreading out its energy. The hurricane force winds extend out over 100 miles from the center. Tropical storm force winds extend out 345 miles from the center. So it is a large wind field, which is why this thing can track way off the coast and still impact us for several hours, a good 24 hours in some cases here. So as we look at the probability of those tropical storm force winds, we are on the outskirts of it, but because it's prolonged and at that level where it's going to be in that 20, 35 plus mile per hour range, it's certainly enough to do some damage. Let's start with the cloud picture, or the lack of rain picture. The hour-by-hour forecast showing already high clouds streaming in through the day, so sort of that filtered sunshine. I don't think we're going to get the bright blue skies everywhere like we had yesterday. With that said, upon closest approach tomorrow morning, we sort of see the peak of all the impacts. Any chance of showers for the eastern end of Long Island, that's when it's going to happen. Clouds then begin to pull away as the storm pulls away during the afternoon on Saturday. Winds start to relax a little bit too, so eventually a nice afternoon. But obviously high impact along the coast, 10 to 15, 16-foot breaking waves. We're talking about overwash and the beach erosion. Also those gusty winds pushing some of that water too, so coastal flooding is a concern. Even areas like the North Shore of Long Island, something to keep in mind. Otherwise, yeah, it's feeling pretty good, feeling like fall out there. JFK near Coney Island, we're reporting 59 degrees and north winds at about 14 miles per hour. We'll continue to see those pretty gusty during the later part of today and into tonight. Temperatures peaking at about 73 this afternoon, once again dipping into the 70s.
Maria, kids are heading off to school. What are they going to find, Maria?
Yeah, if you're getting ready to nudge them out of their warm beds, maybe try and get a light jacket or a sweatshirt on them this morning. It's cool, 40s and 50s, up to 59 in the city now, and a crisp and gray kind of lunch hour as the clouds from Lee move in, but we'll manage to get into the 70s by later on this afternoon. We are looking at one of the cooler mornings for the next few this week, and I'll show you how warm the high temperatures get too in that 10-day forecast.
Maria, thank you so much.
The Jersey Shore, but I just want to point out we do have coastal flood concerns North Shore of Long Island, also coastal Connecticut and Westchester. These are higher high tides, and any of those low-lying areas, if you lived in those susceptible areas that sometimes you see that, this is going to be an issue for at least the next couple of high tide cycles. Some of these advisories going through Sunday morning in and around the city could see some high tides as well, along with the wave action. A lot, of course, tied to the gusty winds, already very breezy, but I'm going to go forward here about 24 hours, and you can see very persistent, very consistently in that 20 plus mile per hour range for most of us. Areas like eastern Long Island, though, it's going to be more like 30 to 40 mile per hour gusts pretty consistently, especially as we get into early tomorrow morning, where we sort of see the peak of all of it, the coastal flooding, the waves, and the wind. Of course, there is Lee, really expanding the wind field here. Those tropical storm force winds extend to 345 miles out. So we are just on the edge of that influence. Definitely getting the cloud cover. So right now, that's what we see, and that's what we will see for the most part, even through tomorrow morning. So no bright blue skies for most of us, but we do get a chance to see that come tomorrow as the storm pulls away. Any chance to see some showers out of this will be minor, not impactful, and tomorrow morning is kind of, again, that time frame. So Lee is out of here. High pressure builds in briefly before that next front comes in through. We may see more rain out of this front compared to Lee, which, again, Again, not a huge problem, not expecting a ton, but timing-wise could be around for that morning commute. Otherwise, setting up what is going to be a very nice last few days of summer. Yes, summer on the calendar anyway. We welcome autumn next Saturday. So looking at Staten Island, you can see the cloud cover, 59 degrees and a brisk northerly flow, bone dry. That humidity really low. Will be about 70 degrees at 1 o'clock, on our way up to 73. So overall, pretty cool afternoon. Again, under mostly cloudy skies. Watching those coastal impacts through the day tonight and tomorrow. We'll see 61 degrees overnight tonight. Back